I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time.
Welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James. I get the distinct honor of introducing you, fabulous women, to extraordinary women who are doing amazing things on the planet. They're change makers. They've all got a story. They've all got a mission. They've all decided that they want to be in high service to other women. So I'm so excited because every week I get nuggets. I'm sure the same is true for you. And so I want you to know that come back every week. We're on all the platforms, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, Amazon. We're on video on YouTube. You can go to cynthiajames.net. That's my website. And there's all kinds of gifts and information about what's going on in my world. And so I want to introduce you to someone who is new to me today. She is Dia Bondi. She works with senior leaders, founders, and ambitious professionals to help them find their voice and lead with securing hundreds of millions of dollars in decisions and resources and carve a path for the future for their teams and their ventures. So she's worked with world-class brands like Intel, Mozilla, Salesforce, Dropbox, and venture capitalist companies, right? In global sport, she helped Rio de Janeiro win the right to host the 2016 Olympic Games. What I want you to know is she's been trained as an auctioneer, and she has written this book, and it's called Ask Like an Auctioneer, How to Ask for More and Get It. And we will be talking about that. And her approach is practical and it's inspirational and it's rooted in real world experience. Everything she does is devoted to cultivating the courage and control you need to shine when stakes are high so you can move towards your goals with unshakable commitment on your own terms. Dia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm assuming you didn't come on the planet as a leader of leaders. So how were you born? How did you grow up?
I was born to two early 20s. I'm not going to say hippies, but crunchy parents in Northern California. And grew up in a very working class neighborhood with a family who was deeply committed to spending a lot of time in the outdoors. Both of my parents were, we have what's called the X Games or, extreme sports. We didn't have that language in the 70s, but let's just say they were extreme athletes. So I was in and around the world of mountaineering and cold water surfing and long distance cycling. And, when you're 7 or 8, that's not so fun, but it did make me rugged in a way that's useful for me today. So yeah, that's where I came from.
Well, blessings, you made it.
I mean, a couple of times it was like we weren't sure. You know what I mean? The tide was going that way and the beach was that way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, okay. So I want to know how you got to be an auctioneer. And then what was the bridge to you using that to support leaders?
That's crazy. So it's actually, I've been supporting leaders for 20 years. So I've been a leadership communications coach for over 2 decades. And as you mentioned in the intro, thank you. I help VC-backed founders and senior leaders speak powerfully when stakes are really high, whether they're in a new leadership role and they need to establish their voice with internal or external audiences, when they're launching products, when they're fundraising, anywhere from 20 to $120 million. They're stepping into big decisions that garner resources for their businesses and their initiatives, doing that for years. And that's in the world of storytelling. How do I speak to my company's initiative in a way that is uniquely my voice, but helps accelerate the business, et cetera? Helped Rio win the right to host the games, beyond. And I took a sabbatical a handful of years ago because we get tired, we get tired. I got tired. And so I took a break. And in that time, I was kind of like, I spent a year doing um, The Artist's Way, cover to cover for listeners who are familiar with that. It was a beautiful gift to me during that year. And my husband said, "Hey, remember that thing that you said you'd do?" So 10 years earlier, I had been invited to be the fundraising auctioneer for my children's preschool fundraiser. Because,
Oh,
all the other mommies and daddies and caregivers were like, "I'm not getting up there." And I was like, "Well, this is what I do for a living. So let's go. And I don't even think I watched an instructional YouTube video. I just kind of faked it. And I was like, "That's so fun." And at a dinner with some friends, had followed up and said, "Gosh, we were all talking about bucket list stuff, as you do. You sit around a table with friends or your girlfriends and you kind of dream about, like, here's what I would do if there weren't any rules." And I had said, "You know what I would really do? I would learn to be an auctioneer for real, like just for an adventure." Well, that during my sabbatical was 10 years after that conversation. And my husband kind of was like, "Maybe go do that now." And so I got on an airplane and I went to auctioneering school, states and states away from where I am now. And when I was done with that, I was like, what am I going to do with this? This is not my career. I'm not walking away from my communications work. And so I decided to make it into an impact hobby. And I know this story is getting a little long, but I'm offering it as women might be listening and thinking about sort of making good on these harebrained promises that they made at a dinner table or a friendship weekend. You just say yes to them because you never know what's going to happen. So I started doing, as an impact hobby, fundraising auctioneering for women-led nonprofits and nonprofits benefiting in women and girls, which, I got to put on a gown and, stand in front of 500 people and ask them for money. And and it was just sort of a challenge to learn how to do it because it's a quite athletic thing to do. You're having to track your numbers and paying attention to what's going on and be entertaining and tell a great story. And, there's a lot to do. And you sell an item like that. And, if the auction is taking longer than 2 minutes, you're taking too long. So, you have
ah,
to really put the pedal, gas, what does it say? Pedal to the metal. And about 30 auctions into it, I was like, oh my gosh, everything I'm learning about how to stand in front of a room, set up a compelling story, and make an ask in a way that kind of flips the model of how we usually design a strategic ask is super useful for all the leaders and founders I work with. And I've been fairly involved with advancing women in work, and I love to support women entrepreneurs who are in sort of pre-seed, seed stage, or bootstrapping. And so I launched this initiative called Ask Like an Auctioneer. Thank you for listening.
wow. No, well, that's incredible. I mean, one of the things I want to say is sometimes we have these sort of harebrained schemes or bucket list items, and we talk ourselves out of even exploring. I love that your husband encouraged you to go explore and you were willing to take that leap. So I want to ask, all right, so an auctioneer, tell me what are the most important things to being an auctioneer?
Well, it's hard to say most, but it is true that being an auctioneer, you need to be able to pay incredible close attention. Like, there's the basic skills part. You need to be able to track
Right.
your numbers. You need to pay attention to where you are. You need to be able to scan the room quickly. You need to be the boss. Like, one of the things that was really clear to me early on was that I might be there to serve the organization, and I do it as a volunteer basis, right? This is an
Right.
impact hobby for me. I recognized very early that when I was too deferential, I would fail. And so I had to be really clear that, like, this is my auction, this is my show, and I will decide when something sells. And once I kind of took the bull by the horns that way, it got a lot easier. And it was a lot easier for everyone in the room too, because they were clear about where I stood.
Yeah.
I would start, and it's funny, I don't talk about this very much, but I would often start saying, I reserve the right to reopen a bid if I miss somebody's bid. I will decide, here's what it sounds like when I'm ready to close like, I let people know that I'm in charge. And it's helpful to them because they know where they stand. So those are really important skills in that auctioneering context. Now, that does translate into our everyday, lives and careers and businesses. Doesn't mean to say you stand in front of your audience or across the table as you're going into making a strategic ask in your business and telling everyone you're the boss. Like, it's a different context. But the idea is the same, meaning, like, you have to kind of be willing to know where you stand, and you need to be willing to kind of run it the way you need to run it until you get information that tells you need to change something. So that's
Oh,
one. Yeah. And
okay. So, okay,
yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
No,
Oh, go
I was gonna
ahead.
say the other part um is that you have to be able to be willing to make decisions right now.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about women.
Mm,
Let's talk about our reticence on occasion
yeah.
to ask for what we deserve,
Yeah.
to stand up for ourselves, to stand in our power in places that can feel uh, dangerous.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that that's what your book is about, how to ask for more and get it.
Yeah.
Ask like an auctioneer. I remember, okay, Judge Judy, right? At one time, she was like the highest paid. She might still be up in the top. And the interviewer said to her, "Well, how did you get to be this position?" She said, "I asked for it." She said, "I deserved it. My ratings were really high, and I wasn't going to walk out of there without them giving me more." And I was like, wow, most of us don't have the courage to step out in that way. So let's talk about women asking for what they deserve.
So, I'm gonna challenge you a little bit.
Okay.
Um, in that it is I hear this language a lot around asking for what you deserve.
Okay.
And in asking like an auctioneer, what you deserve has nothing to do with it.
Okay, cool.
Because we deserve whatever we ask for. And in fact, if everybody got what they deserved in the world, things would look really different.
Okay.
So we kind of, and I think sometimes our own sense of deserving gets us in the way of asking for more because
Okay.
it inherently, we decide what what we might deserve, and then that's all we ask for. Like the ask itself is limited by what we think we deserve,
Okay.
which may
So
in
it can
fact
be
be
your own limitations.
it can even be less than what someone else thinks you deserve. Do you see what I
Oh,
mean?
got it. 100%.
So,
Okay.
well, it's useful. I want everyone to get what they deserve. I want them to know that they're deserving of whatever they ask for. And if we kind of enmesh our sense of deserving with the asks we make, we tend to make too much meaning out of the answers we get.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
one way for us to be a little bit more courageous about asking for more is to let what we deserve be infinite and unrelated to what we ask
Okay.
for.
Okay.
Do you see what
Great.
I'm saying?
100%.
If Judge Judy has amazing reviews, she's penetrating, more viewership and households, if she's growing with a bigger demographic, if advertisers want slots during her space, that is about deserving, but it's also about what her market is, and it's evidence in the story that she tells in order to make the biggest ask possible. What
Okay, so is that part of it then? It's like getting clear about what is happening, what you've created, what your brand is, what your market is,
Yes.
and you ask from that position?
Yes, and understanding that the market isn't necessarily your market.
Okay,
Meaning
explain
you,
more.
you you could say I'm a product manager in technology, in this particular geography. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Uh,
So there is a market. Then there is your market, which is to say the specific blockchain company that is, desperate to hire somebody with your specific weird, surprising background because you came out of ed tech, and that you are rarefied air for them in that moment, and their need is so great they have to stop the bleeding. Guess how much more power you have in that moment in that micro market you are in than the greater market for your job title. What I
okay.
what I mean is the market is highly situational for you. It's yours in that moment. So
Yes.
we can't
Yes.
we can't always just Google what's the, typical annual salary of a product manager in technology today,
Right.
because it's going to be drawing on the market, not your unique context that you're in right now. And context drives value a lot. So,
Okay. All
yeah.
right, so hold on. So
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
just, so this is great. So, I mean, you deal with high-end leaders and companies and stuff.
Correct.
So, but when they are getting ready to move to the next level and they come to you, How do you get them to get clear on the context and the value?
Well, so in my leadership communications work, we're doing a different kind of storytelling. When I work with women specifically up and down all of their career moments, my book is aimed at women who are stepping out of college to stepping into the C-suite, okay? So I'm asking them to, yes, do the research and consider the context, get feedback from peers, and then take inventory really clearly about the situation that is your market in that moment. Take inventory, recognize that context, and you get to interpret it the way you want to, you know? Now, you shared with me, the question of like, how do we be less reticent and have more courage to make the ask once we've said, well, understand that the labor market is in a certain condition. I understand that interest rates are high. I understand that, there've been big tech layoffs and that can be scary because it feels underpowered. But then if I start taking inventory of this exact situation that I am in with these people I am having a conversation with, things look a little differently, you know? So it's just being willing to take the greater context and then take inventory of your context.
Okay.
And then once you go to make the ask that matters to you, to remember a couple of things that are useful, that I found are useful, that I learned from the auctioneering stage, that will help us go ahead and push send, that help us go ahead and add an extra zero, that help us go ahead and approach that bigger mentor, that better brand, that bigger stage, whatever the more is looks like it for you. And that is the idea that price is a measure of value, not worth. It's related to what we said earlier. Price or what somebody will pay or do for you is a measure of what they value and how they value it, not a way for us to define or determine our own worth or worthiness. And if we can remember that, it can help us push send and go ahead and make that bigger ask.
Well, when we were talking before this show started, you have a very big goal for how many women this book touches. Can you tell us about that goal and how you got to that number?
My goal with this book is to help 1 million women ask for more and get it, and use asking as a success strategy so we can put more money and decision-making power in the hands of women so we can change everything for all of us.
And how did you get to 1 million?
It's a big number.
Okay.
It
Okay.
feels
Okay.
impossible, so I just put the idea of a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. Now, so clearly, you got a big life. You
Oh,
do big work in the world. How many children do you have?
I have two kiddos. They're 17 and 14. I have an
Uh,
older son and a younger daughter. It's funny you said I have a big life because I feel like my life is quite small, actually.
do you?
Yes.
Tell me why.
Um, because my routine is really repeatable, because I have can fit my best friends in the palm of one hand. I don't work with thousands and thousands of leaders. I carry a small book of clients at one time. My sort of core philosophy is small but deep. And so, even though my goal is to help 1 million women ask for more and get it, I do it in women's living rooms and book salons, small rooms of 150 to 500 people at a time. I go in, I hope to ignite, helping a woman ask for more and get it in her business and her life. And then I leave and I don't know, you know? And so in that way, my world feels small, but I just parachute into these different contexts periodically. I don't know if that feels resonant for anybody else.
Well, I get it, but let me tell you what I'm looking at. That I'm looking at that you have gotten very clear about how to manage your energy, your time, and your gifts.
Thank you. I'll take that. Yes, it is true that I am very protective of my downtime.
Yeah. Well, you're married, you've got these two children, you're running this business, and you've gotten very clear about how to take care of yourself. Is this important for women in general?
I think so. I think, when I think about asking for more, it's not about accumulating things necessarily. It could be about more of what you don't want. It can be about more stretches of time, more flexibility, more autonomy in how you design your days. It's about more freedom to focus. So, more isn't just adding to the pile. Sometimes it's about asking for the more of what you need to curate a very small but meaningful pile.
Yes, yes. Well, I love that because some of the people that I work with, they have a difficult time managing the amount of time and energy they put into the work they do in the world and the amount of time and energy that's being requested from family and friendships and all of that. And so they can tend to give too much of themselves away and become depleted. I'm
Totally.
thinking that you cannot ask for more to get it if you are depleted.
100%. And you kind of have to be all of this to me is the theme of being willing to disappoint.
Oh,
There was a moment in when my kids were little where I told my whole loud, busy, intertwined, multi-generational family, Christmas morning is at my house. You know where to find us. I will not be schlepping my children in and out of dresses and, button-up shirts and auntie's house and uncle's house. And we're not doing that. We're
right.
having a quiet life. And you know where to find us. I'll make sure there's plenty of bacon. Do you know? So there's my husband and I used to just, my husband and I used to do a thing on Thanksgiving where we'd go to like my aunt's house for an open house, and then we'd go to my grandmother's house for an early dinner, and then we'd go to his grandparents' house for a late dinner. And after we were married, I was like, we're not doing that. We're picking one.
Right.
And I got in trouble.
Oh, I'm sure, because
I
everybody had expectations.
Oof. And so I think part of women finding that space and carving out peace means being willing to get in trouble a little bit and willing to disappoint. Now, when you think about asking for more and getting it, it also means that if the counteroffer you get isn't good enough for you, we also need to be willing to go like, "Oh, thanks so much for the offer. That's not going to work for me."
Yeah, because no can be a complete sentence in
Yep.
your heart and in your way of being.
It's so
Yeah,
funny.
go ahead.
I just saying that like I have women talk to me about their anxieties about asking for more, and they have equal anxieties for saying no,
Yeah, because we're enculturated to care for others first.
to not prioritize our own need.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think, well, and I'll just ask you, I mean, you're a woman in business and you deal with women, you support women in business. And do you see that that they get conflicted about being perfect everywhere?
Oh, sure. And I do too. I mean, I don't think that really, I don't have the expectation that's going to go away. It's like, how do I manage it? And I find that the women at very senior levels who manage it really well, I'm thinking about one individual woman who's she runs she's like GM, chief product officer for a large software company that is in uh you know a lot of organizations across the globe. And she does a great job. Just as an example, she's like, she presents herself so well and like she's got it all together, and she does, but a big part of of that is she has done a great job of curating, knowing who's got her back.
Ah,
And that I think gives her and the women that I see be really successful in very ambitious positions. Maybe ambitious isn't the right word. In very like high performing, high expectation positions, they're very clear about curating a group of peers around them that they can trust and they know they have their back. And I think that takes the edge off having to be perfect all the time because you have
yeah,
people who feel like insiders to you. Does that make sense?
100%. But I think also it's like doing the same thing with your teams, feeling like
Mm,
people are empowered and that you have their back and they have your back because
mhm.
everybody's got the same goals in terms of success.
Yes.
Well, I want to know how people find you, how they get this fabulous book, how they get to work with you.
Thank you. Well, we did make a special welcome page for your listeners. So folks can go to diabondi.com/awakening. Or
Okay.
you can just go to diabondi.com and find everything that I do there. The ways to work with me are I do private coaching. I only take I can only take as many clients as can fit in one hand at a time because I need my peace. And I think about you when I'm walking the dog. Do you know what I mean? Like you take up a lot of real estate in my heart and in my head. So there's that. Um, Two, I do speaking engagements. I love working with product leaders. I love working with sales teams. I love working with marketing teams. And then three, I run programs called the intensives. One is a leadership voice focused intensive, which is either a multi-week um, virtual experience or an on-site retreat, and one called the Impact Voice Intensive, which is really more skills focused. So those are the ways I can have more impact. But again, my philosophy is small and deep. So those cohorts are no more than 20 people at a time. So if folks are interested in that, they can get on my mailing list and know when the next one opens up.
Well, what I love about that is that if I'm your client, I feel special
Mm,
and I feel like I'm important to
mm,
you.
because you are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I ask the same last question of every guest on this show. The show is called Women Awakening.
Mm.
Why do you think it is important for women to be awakening at this moment on the planet?
Because mm, because the world resists women's leadership. And the more awake we are to each other and to our own power, the more I think we can cope with and move forward regardless of that resistance.
Thank you so much. I know a lot of women feel that, and I'm so glad you vocalized it. I'm so grateful that you came today and that I've gotten to know you. It feels like being in your world is a very intimate experience.
I like to think that.
So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, ladies, I close the show the same way. Different words, same message. What if you knew you were powerful? What if you knew that you had gifts nobody else could deliver the way you came to deliver them? What if the enculturation of women had no impact on you because you were willing to create a new path? I just want you to know that you're important, that you are a leader, that you are extraordinary, and the world has been waiting for you. And I'm so grateful to have been with you today. I love you, and I'll see you next time.